Good morning, everyone. What a beautiful spirit has engulfed this room, how positive your energy is, and what a distinct pleasure it is to be invited to address so many of you who have come forward to celebrate a very important occasion. Thank you for your very kind welcome. I apologize for arriving at the designated hour, because we had other meetings before, and for interrupting Catherine's speech. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, protocols have been established. Suffice it to say, I wish to recognize Mr. Toby, who is the originator of all of this, way back when in 2008 this energy and drive started, to the board of directors of the MIC, to the conveners of today's event, and to all of you who have taken time to come out this morning and to spend some time reflecting upon who we are, where we can go in this labeled exercise of unlocking. For those of you who know me, I'm a rather informal speaker. I'm not one who celebrates accolades. I genuinely believe in the principle of service. So take note. Number one, I got the MIC colors right this morning. Number two, in about a month's time, my beard should be somewhere around there. I got the memo that I had to demonstrate it, at least this morning, so I congratulate those of us who are brave enough to wear facial hair these days. But let me start by saying my message to us is really to celebrate who we are. Catherine said perhaps everything that one could say. And I have a slightly different take on some of what she said this morning. I genuinely believe if we want to unlock potential, there are a few basic ground rules that we need to understand. Let's look at it this way. Many people stand up and tell you about their successes. I achieved this, I achieved that. I had a stellar performance here, I had a stellar performance there. For me, the thing that I celebrate greatly in life and have always is really two things combined. One, a genuine lack of shame, and two, celebrating your mistakes. Why? It's through your exercise of hitting your head against the wall, of having a failure at a particular moment in time, that you have the opportunity to decide what you're going to do next. And permit me to give you a few reflective moments in my own life. I was a student of Presentation College, San Fernando. And back in that time, we were told you had to do medicine, you had to be an engineer, you had to go into law, accounting. They were very traditional fields. And in the period Form 1 to Form 3, I performed very well, usually at the top of the class. And I was managed into the science stream. I was told, you have to do maths, physics, chemistry, biology. You are going into the special stream, because we had a special stream for who people considered to be the more advanced students. I was not interested in that because my friends were not in the special stream, so I elected a different path. In my first term at the Form 4 level, I saw Mr. Constantine, our vice principal, come down to me, an Irishman, and he said, pack your bags. So I was like, why? He says, you're going up to the special stream. I'm like, but sir, I don't want to. I'm quite happy where I am. Packed my bags, was taken to the special stream class. And we had a very peculiar AdMaths teacher named Brother Liggery. Brother Liggery spoke with a thick County Cork accent, and he had very unusual characteristics. So there I was, entered into AdMaths in the advanced stream, and first term exams came around. Brother Liggery was the type who would not go over the work that you had missed. You had to catch up yourself. Got into the exam, wrote the exam. Recall Brother Liggery giving us out the results. So there we were in class. The results were graded. highest on top in the stack of papers, lowest on the bottom. The names started to call, and he would call the names and hand the paper. By the time we got down to the 50% mark, Brother Liggery would go, "Oh no, I can't look at this." And he'd fold the paper and hand it to you. And he went down and down the ladder, and last in the pack was yours truly. I still remember that grade so vividly. I got a massive, whopping 11 out of 100 in that exam. And Brother Liggery handed it over, couldn't look at me, and says he'd have to talk to my mother. I said to myself then, right. It happened. There I was, pushed into a new stream. Nobody would go over the work. They were light years ahead of where we were, but the fight was on. You could have decided, well, okay, I've been devastated. That is something that could knock you off your chair. The next term was a massive 19 out of 100. The term after that, 25 out of 100. Form 5, first term, 35 out of 100. Mock exams, pui trees blooming, exams around the corner, 45 out of 100. Bad mind over here, lack of shame over here, had a mission. This is not going to define me. And true to form, went down the line, and quite unsurprisingly from my perspective, but surprisingly from everyone else's perspective, came out with an A in Ad Maths. And that became the story at school. How could a guy who got 11 out of 100 hit the marker now at an A? But then the lessons started to come by the guys in the class telling the story that they would not leave anyone behind. They sat and we worked together as a group in making sure, number one, that you didn't feel any shame for your grade. Number two, it wasn't over until it was over. Number three, that you always had the potential to push it. And so that mission went into every stage in life. And I'm going to ask you a question now. Think back to when you were at school. Think to the experience at MIC. Think about your examination routine. You walk out of an exam, you make the mistake to talk to one of your colleagues who just sat the exam with you. What did you put for number 19? They give you an answer. You realize, oh my God, I did not put the same thing. I got it wrong. But how many of you remember the other questions you got right? You walk away from that experience holding on to the thing you got wrong. And that stays with you many years later. And I would like to say that in the experience as administrative professionals, it's the same story. Life is a continuous exam. You are constantly being stretched and tested. But for many of us, we become comfortable in the spaces that we're in. For many of us, we have a routine. It's brought down to one word: somnambulism, sleepwalking. We get up, we get ready for our routine, family, etc. We get out the door, we get to our respective places, we put in certain hours, we're on the routine back home, and then you press repeat. Your weekends come. But in that daily exchange of routine, how many of us remember the fact that each day is limited? How many of us think about where we stand in the room? One of the philosophies that I believe are key to unlocking potential is understanding that if you are the fastest person in your room, mentally the fastest, performing at the fastest rate, it's time to think about going into another room. It's time to think about stretching yourself, because it's only with stretch that you grow. The truth is, your challenges are what make you grow. That 11 out of 100 is a challenge. I put it down to a word which gave rise to a particular theory which I espouse. I can't be the user of foul language with the current capacity that I hold, but I'll just tell you that in Arabic there's a word which is very similar to the English expression. And the theory is called the Jahash theory. So the word in Arabic is Jahash, and there's a theory. If that Jahash could do it, I could do it too. And I want you to think about that for a moment. Because what it tells you is, if you understand the state and condition of your sleepwalking, of being the fastest person in the room, of the truth that your lessons, your hard lessons, your hits, your knocks, your failures are your greatest teachers, then you understand the Jahash theory. I can and will do it too. It's a question of your own perspective on yourself. I want to tell you this. Nobody in a job interview is going to ask you what grade you got in chemistry at Form 5, what grade you got at A-levels, what was the specific subject grade you got at university. No. Let me tell you what people look for in bringing you into their team. They look for attitude. And today we saw wonderful attitude. It's not lost on me, having been brought up the way that I have, that chivalry should never be dead, that it is an obligation to look after those around you, be it to be conscious of a lady in high heels or an elderly person in front of you and holding a hand and taking someone's arm and taking them through what could be potentially a difficult situation. It is not lost upon me that attitude matters. How many of you have taken that trip, that ride, that long ride in an elevator where nobody says good morning? Walking down the street where you tell someone good morning, whoosh, full bus treatment on the left or right. In Trinidad and Tobago, we've lost our attitude somewhat. In this audience and in this demonstration today, we don't seem to have lost that. And I want to compliment the MIC for bringing that attitude of positivity and help your brother, help your sister attitude to the front. It's not okay to be rude. It is okay to be strong. It is okay to articulate your points of view. It is okay to be sharp at times, but get to the point of clemency, of mercy. Don't end someone's particular position on a point of view by embarrassing that person in such a way that that person is going to be demoralized. There's a careful balance to be struck. And as I look around this room in unlocking your potential, permit me to be a little bit bold to the ladies that sit amongst us here. So I start off by saying, my mother is 5'2", my wife is 5'2", my daughters are around the same version, and they are all thugs. They're all tough like nails. They are all strong women. But ladies, look around us here today. This is labeled administrative professionals. There are not many men sitting in the audience. Go back to your respective workplaces. There aren't many men there either. Come and visit the graduating class that is being called to the bar, qualifying as lawyers every year. And of 100 people being qualified, there are now 90 women in the pack. It's just a fact. I don't know how much of a glass ceiling Trinidad has left, certainly from our government's point of view, our political party's point of view, and in the office of the Attorney General, there is no glass ceiling. It is he or she who is best fit and qualified for the position that obtains the position. But, ladies, you hold a power over men that is immeasurable because you are the rocks of our families. You are the sun in the solar system. If mommy is upset, the whole house gone through. If mommy is not tracking well or wife is not tracking well, you're in trouble. But in that journey, there has been, in the unlocking exercise, an unfortunate casualty, which is losing the strength of femininity at times. And I say this very carefully because I have a twin sister. So I was born with a female next to me and carry life throughout with her constant reminder. I'm very careful about what I've just said. I'd just like to encourage the ladies in our group, the women, the sisters, the mothers, the daughters, the cousins, to remember that there is an immense advantage that you have over men, and that sometimes be a little bit conscious about this argument of glass ceiling when you look at the numbers in the workplace. I'm often hard-pressed to find young men working in enterprises, and I'd like you to remember that there's a careful balance to be there. The concept that I'd like to throw out to you is something that I think is a very good driving force in the Renaissance concept, and it is the concept of Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci is often attributed as the Renaissance man. Why? Because he was all-rounded in his excellence. The all-roundedness was academic, it was artistic, it was musical. I'll add to that spirituality and your physical side. It is imperative in your journey to unlock your own potential that you remember balance is critical. I want you to remember in achieving this balance that your physical side is a very important side. Why? It unlocks your hormonal imbalance. It unlocks the way you feel, your attitude. It unlocks the aggression that you may or may not have at a particular point in time. It is critical in your balance that you engage in unlocking the other sides of your personality. And I encourage you, we have in the Office of the Attorney General dedicated a very important part of our mission statement to finding balance. So we promote in our work environment physical balance, family balance, and sharing balance. That's something that I recommend very strongly. Catherine mentioned something about having vision. Her vision was to be at a particular financial institution, so stated on her CV when she was 26. But I want to tell you, I couldn't tell you that when I was 19, 20, 22, 26, 30, that I had any ambition to be the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago. None. In fact, in my advanced levels, I did maths, physics, and chemistry. I was accepted to go and do my interviews at the Royal College of Surgeons to pursue medicine. It was after that that I came upon law. I wasn't quite sure that I had this passion to be a doctor. I was in that slipstream of the science of being told you have to go in that point, got so far as about to go for interviews at the Royal College of Surgeons, stopped for a moment and then said, well, hold on, where am I going? In unlocking your potential, you must ask yourself, where am I going? And I want to tell you that the vision is not always as clear as Catherine's vision. In my own vision, it was akin to being dropped in the middle of the sea. You cannot see the shore. You do not know which way land is. You start swimming. You see a seagull pass you overhead, headed somewhere. You pray it's not a boat out at sea, and it's in fact headed to land, and you start swimming faster. And in that personal journey for me, something was an epiphany. I met someone at that juncture between medicine and law who said to me, do something that you get better with age. And I said, what does that mean? And he said to me, find something that taps into your natural talent. And then you will find yourself impassioned by what you're doing. For many of us, we don't know what our natural talent is, or for some of us, our natural talent might not put food on the plate. You may be talented in one direction and realize that you're incapable of supporting your family if you head in that direction. And therefore, there's a hard balance. The difficulty for me at that juncture was applying to universities and then being accepted to do all. engineering, architecture, medicine, law, and then law fell in. And I have to tell you that I've been extremely satisfied at the privilege of practicing law. But the journey to this current position was born out of enjoying social service and charitable work. I felt that there was a duty as an attorney at law to help the less privileged, to engage in charitable work, to stretch myself into a comfort zone that was not my own, to step out of being a somnambulist, of sleepwalking, of moving into a room where I was no longer the fastest person in the room, but I was the slowest person in the room, catching up with the other people who were brighter, quicker, sharper, and more experienced than me. And that charitable service worked its way, one step after another, into social service, into political activity, and then into current position. And I'd like to tell you that politicians are their own worst enemies. If you take a ranking and a poll of the two least trustworthy professions, lawyers come second to last, and politicians come last. I happen to be both. It took me a long time to wear the label of calling myself a politician. And I want to tell you that I think that politicians, in carrying out the manner of politics in our country, have done a disservice, because there is a lot of hard work that is done. There is a lot of hard work in the privilege of serving people. The political one-upmanship gets in the way of recognizing how distinguished it is to carry out a purpose, which is why whenever I have the chance, I take note of my opponent's strengths and give the compliment where it's due. In this audience, there are two amazing women. I won't call them out because one is particularly shy and the other is a little reserved, but they are my executive secretary and my personal secretary. When I came into the Attorney General's office, I inherited these two amazing ladies from my predecessor on contract. And the normal thing, apparently, is to dismiss people who your predecessors employed. And that's not what I did. In coming into the Attorney General's office, everybody stayed. Every single person stayed. It went further. People who were moving out of other ministries, I actively went out and headhunted them and brought them into the AG's office. People asked me if I was crazy. What are you doing? You don't know if these people can be trusted or not. I said, I am the Attorney General for all of Trinidad and Tobago, not for the PNM. And what I'm interested in is professional competence. If I can't, by my own example, inspire the people who I work with to trust me or to have some modicum of support for me, then I failed in my own purpose. And I want to thank these two particular women who make sure I'm on time, I don't forget, who run me down in the corridor to make sure that I commit to my meetings, who always have their beautiful warm smiles on their faces, who make sure that there's a banana I could at least grab and run and eat while I'm moving from meeting to meeting, who are consummate professionals that keep us and me on the right track. I want to express my debt of gratitude to these two particular ladies. And yes, I'll call you Cherise and Gwen. You're both here. Thank you, ladies. And thank you in particular to the head of our corporate communications as an administrative professional, Miss Asha Claxton, and her team, again a team which I inherited. You see, in unlocking your potential and in coming to the end of my contribution, I've drawn that last example to tell you, don't be afraid of what other people tell you you should be afraid of. Forge your own path. Have the courage to break the mold. Have the courage to test yourself. 3 years from now, you'll be 3 years older. 3 years from now, you can be 3 years older and have a degree under your belt. 3 years from now, you can have a master's degree under your belt. 3 years from now, you can have more work experience. 3 years from now or a year from now, you can have stretched yourself. Tomorrow, you can have engaged in charitable work. It is that renaissance experience of broadening your whole character that is going to unlock your potential. Don't be afraid to get 11 out of 100. Don't be afraid to be dragged out of your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to be feminine or masculine. Don't be afraid to grow a beard. Don't be afraid to wear a flower in your lapel. Don't be afraid to say thank you or good morning. Step up the game, Trinidad and Tobago. Step up ourselves. Celebrate our positivity. Unlock your potential by not being the fastest guy or girl in the room. Unlock your potential by celebrating your mistakes. Unlock your potential by taking yourself a little less seriously than you ought to. Unlock your potential by remembering the shame that your parents may have if you do something one way or the other. The cloud that is looming eternally from my mother's right hand still visits me in my memory and in my dreams. The fact that you may disappoint somebody you've given your word to, your boss, your wife, your husband, your neighbor, the child who is relying upon you. Don't be afraid to hold your ground. One thing that comes with political office is a massive and generous dose of ridicule. It's easy when you see it to chuckle, to laugh. Be the subject of the ridicule. Bring your family into it. Be the guy or girl on the front page. Be the person in the meme. And mind you, there's some really good memes out there. Be that person for 2 seconds, for 3 minutes, for a day, for a week, for a year, for 5 years. Understand what clemency is. Holding people to account does not mean embarrassing them. And I say that because as you unlock your potential, you're going to be in charge of someone else. If you have to buff somebody, buff them on an issue. If you have to do it on a closed-door environment basis, where it's you and that person talking about an issue. Have mercy. Because I'll tell you this, God has a great sense of justice. And karma, kismet, maktub, destiny, payback, universal justice, it's real. Live your life clean. Have fun. You only have a few hours in the day. You only have a few years in your life. You will notice that your months go by like weeks and your years go by like months. Be present in your now. Make sure that you are honest to yourself and enjoy what you do. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the privilege of addressing you this morning and for allowing me to be as informal as I have. I wish you a very, very productive day, and I hope you've enjoyed our collective experience. Thank you.